when we get our pump is we're gonna order the drum adapter that goes on here, which seals up your product completely. It screws into the 2-inch bunghole, either on a keg or a 55-gallon drum. Keeps the air out of the product, keeps foreign material from getting down in your product. Okay? To put one of these on, it's a fun job, but it only takes a couple of tools and a couple of minutes to actually do it.
So if you order the kit from Linux Corporate, that adapter is already part of the kit. All right, guys, you don't have to worry about picking tips out, right gun, right hose, right adapter, all that's put together.
To put these on, and I don't have my wrenches here to do it, you need 2 pipe wrenches. Channel locks aren't going to be enough to do it. These are screwed on there pretty tight from the factory. So you need 2 pipe wrenches, one to hold the stem, one to hold the foot valve, break it loose. Unscrew it, just set it off to the side. This slides right on there, it's got an O-ring, it'll be pre-greased for you from the factory. Slide it on over there, all the way up. Put your foot valve back on, make sure you get it nice and snug back on the stem. Once you've got that on there, then you can set it down in your drum, and we can work on the rest of it. The instructions come with it, but this is the proper setup as per Graco themselves. Put your regulator on, use Teflon tape. This will be your air supply coming in. On the opposite side, which is the fluid side of the product going out, this is the recommended setting to install this. Put the T on there and a valve and the outlet here. This is for if for some reason the gun ever clogs up, something goes wrong with the pump and it's under pressure. The only way to get the pressure off would be to unscrew stuff, and that's going to make a mess. Hit the valve, it'll release the pressure, product will come out here, make a big mess, but that's the only way to relieve the pressure if it's a catastrophe in the pump or in the system itself. Never had it happen to anybody, but this is the way they set it up, so this is the way I tell you. This isn't the way I set my pumps up. I set mine up without all this stuff, because what's going to happen, and this I have seen once, you've got this set, the air pressure's on, somebody hits that valve, and all of a sudden you're pumping undercoating all over the floor and nobody knows it. And you got half a drum on the floor. I don't use any of this when I set my systems up. I just take my hose, and there's an adapter. You take this out, or you can put a swivel here if you want. They got swivels you can put in there. Just screw it right in, and you're ready to start pumping. There's no real need to have all this, although it's recommended, and you don't absolutely have to have it. If you do, some guys will take this off, take the handle off the valve, so it can't accidentally be opened while it's under pressure, and you won't lose all your product. That's one thing you can do. When you have your new pump and you're ready to, you got it all hooked up, we have to check the seals to make sure they didn't loosen up at the factory. It's about a 50-50 shot of whether the seals will be loose from the factory or not. If the seals are loose and you start pumping product, it's going to leak out of a weep hole underneath the pump here, and then it'll be all over the top of your drum. That means the seals are loose, the packings are loose. So what we do is we take the inspection plate off, get the air hose here.
Sure.
If you can see right here, this threaded part with the hole in it, that's how you tighten up your packings.
Take a peek at that.
Kind of hard to see.
You can see the hole
Right there, there's 3 or 4 holes all the way around there. You should be able to access one from just taking off one inspection plate, but if you can't, take the inspection plate off the other side. Now Graco will tell you to take a 1/4-inch rod and stick in there, and then you can turn it. 1/4-inch rod's too loose. What I find the best is a 6mm Allen wrench. And for some reason, my 6mm is missing. Picked up a couple of things here. I don't know if I got the right size or not.
You want to use one with a square end, not a ball end.
Yeah,
There you go.
but it's pretty loose in there. And all you got to do is, when your pump's brand new, is loosen it up about a 1/4 of a turn, and then tighten it up that 1/4 turn, and then see how much more you can go. You should be able to get at least about another 1/4 of a turn out of it. If you can't, that means it's already tight and you shouldn't have to worry about it. But just make sure those seals or those packings are tight as you before you start pumping any product through there.
You always want to break it loose first.
Break it loose just a little bit. It'll break right loose, and then tighten it up about a 1/4 of a turn or so until those packings are nice and tight in there. You'll know if you didn't do it right when you plug it in and you start pumping product, because you'll start getting product dripping out of the bottom of it. Sometimes, even though it does that, if you unhook the air, release the pressure, and just let that product sit on those seals for about a half hour, it'll swell them up just enough and they'll stop leaking for you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If they're real loose, that's not gonna work. But if they're snug, it should work just fine. Once you got it all tightened up, put your inspection plate on, you're ready to go to business. When we fire it up for the first time, we're gonna turn our pressure down just a little bit. I'm not gonna plug this in because there's no product for it to pump, and the pump will just keep pumping, 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 and running away. Plug it into your air, squeeze your trigger just a little bit. Let that air get pumped out of the system. Aim it towards a garbage can, empty cardboard box or something. Pump it a couple times till you start getting product out of the tip. Once you get product out of the tip, release the pressure, let it sit for a few minutes. The gun itself, make life easy. It should come with a swivel. So this swivels right here instead of being real tight, because when you're up underneath that car, it's a pain in the butt if you don't have that swivel. There are extensions that you can get for these. There's angled swivels that you can get. There's a 10-inch arm that you can get to go on here to get hard to reach areas. Some guys like them, some guys don't. That's entirely up to you. On the gun itself, this has still got the 517 in here. But these tips are what's called the reversa tip. When the arrow points away from you, that's your wide spray pattern. When the arrow points towards you, that's a real skinny, clear the nozzle setting. So if it ever clogs up, you're going to reverse that tip to clear any clogs. So you're spraying along, all of a sudden it stops spraying, or it starts spitting and sputtering. Reverse that tip towards you, squeeze the trigger, it'll clear any clogs, turn it back, and you're ready to start spraying again. It happens, I don't know, it may never happen for 3 or 4 drums, then it'll start on you for some reason. Something gets dried up in the hose or dried up in the nozzle, and you'll need to reverse it to clear the clog. No big deal. When you're doing this and you put a new tip in, make sure that that tip is pushed all the way in. If that tip is out just a hair and you squeeze that trigger, undercoating's going everywhere but out that tip. That training I did at Delta Sonic, I'm explaining to the guy, make sure that tip is in all the way. Yeah, it is. Squeeze that trigger. Caught about 6 people with undercoating. Luckily I was standing behind somebody. Undercoating just went flying. Remember, this is high pressure. So when you squeeze that trigger, it's going to push that product out somewhere. So make sure that tip is in all the way and that it's pointing in the right direction.
You want to be careful not to move the seat that's inside there out of place. I think that's what Tim's showing you right now.
Down in here, instead of taking this one out, I'll show you what they look like, is the seat that the tip rides in that makes a tight seal.
And this is a black rack 5, it's called. You always want to have the black tips.
It's a little U channel that tip slides in, and then there's a little gasket on the end of it. Make sure that's all together when you put that in there. And that goes in the bottom with the U channel facing towards the guard. And your tip slides right into there, forms a perfectly tight seal in there. These do wear out. The seals can wear out and the tips can wear out. When they wear out, replace them. You need to keep your tips clean. New Car Prep's the best product to keep your tips clean and your gun clean and all this clean. At the end of every day you're done spraying, clean this, clean your tip, put it back together, put it back on the gun. There's no, unless it's got real problems and clogged up with dried up product in there, there's really no need to soak it overnight. I still have customers that soak the whole gun overnight and solve it. Really no need to do that unless you're that messy. But just keep your equipment clean, clean it with some New Car Prep occasionally, and you're good to go. Make sure it's tight. Make sure that your guard and everything's facing out. Make sure your reverser tip is in and tight, and it should be a little stiff when you're turning. If it's real sloppy, it's worn out, time to replace it. When you're spraying a vehicle, you can change the direction it sprays in. So like it's set now to spray in a nice wide pattern like this. But if you just turn it, now it'll be a nice wide pattern like that. So you can do it like that. Most guys just leave it like that and do the turning themselves. But you can do it either way you want to do it. I recommend keeping it like that and then going from there. A swivel here really helps. You got to have that swivel. I don't have mine here. I gave it to somebody. That's why I don't have it. But they also make another swivel that's an angled swivel that you can put in here. That makes it a little bit easier to spray undercoating, especially when you're up in tight areas and stuff. But keep it clean. Make sure that nozzle stays in there. The tips do wear out. If it's not leaking or anything, but you're getting a really weird pattern, it's called the devil's tail. It's thick with a pattern in between, your tips wore out. About every 6 or 8 months, I recommend replacing the tip for about $35, $40. But a new tip helps everything go a lot smoother when you're spraying. I've got guys that had the same tip for years. They've never changed them, and they still spray fine. But keep that tip in mind. If it starts getting a weird spray pattern, replace your tip. Any questions on a setup?
How much are tips?